A random Wednesday, nothing special about it. You wake up, check your phone, and there's an email from your employer. Subject line: Important update regarding your position. Your stomach drops before you even open it. And in the 3 seconds it takes to read the first sentence, your brain doesn't think about your career. It doesn't think about your reputation. It doesn't think about what comes next professionally. It thinks about one thing: how many days can I survive if this paycheck stops? For most people, and this number is going to hit harder than you expect, the honest answer is less than 30 days. Not because they're irresponsible, not because they don't work hard, not because they haven't tried, but because 78% of workers globally are living paycheck to paycheck right now in 2026. Nearly 8 out of every 10 people you walk past today are one unexpected event away from a financial crisis. And the most terrifying part? Most of them have no idea how close to the edge they actually are. My name is Nick, and I spend way too much time thinking about the financial systems that keep ordinary people trapped, and the specific decisions that set others free. If you've ever felt like you're working harder than ever but somehow never getting ahead, subscribe, because that feeling has a very specific cause, and today we're going to find it. Let's get into it. Let's start with the stat that should be on the front page of every newspaper in the world, but somehow isn't. 78% of workers are living paycheck to paycheck. Let that sit for a second. This isn't a number from some obscure study nobody's heard of. This comes from a global workforce survey tracking hundreds of thousands of workers across the US, UK, Canada, and Australia. And when you dig into what paycheck to paycheck actually means, not just the surface definition, the picture gets significantly darker. Most people assume paycheck to paycheck means broke, struggling, visibly in financial distress. But here's what the research actually defines it as: unable to cover 1 month of essential expenses if your income suddenly stopped. 1 month, 30 days. And under that definition, which is the correct one, 78% of workers globally qualify. Here's what makes this genuinely shocking. This isn't just a story about low-income workers. It's not a story about people who made bad choices or didn't try hard enough. In the US, 36% of people earning over $100,000 a year live paycheck to paycheck. In the UK, nearly 1 in 3 households earning above the median income report having less than 1 month of savings. In Australia, the number is similar. In Canada, worse. This is not an income problem. It's a system problem. And understanding the difference is the most important financial insight you can have in 2026. Because if you're sitting there thinking, "That's not me, I make decent money," I want you to actually run the numbers before this video ends. Because a lot of people who think they're fine. To understand why so many people are one paycheck away from disaster, you need to understand what happened to the gap between income and expenses over the last 2 decades. Because that gap, the breathing room between what comes in and what goes out, didn't disappear overnight. It was squeezed, slowly, from both sides. And most people didn't notice until it was almost gone. Let me show you exactly what happened. In 2004, the average worker in the US spent roughly 27% of their income on housing. Today, that number is closer to 37% in most major cities, and significantly higher in places like London, Sydney, Toronto, and New York. That's 10 percentage points of your income that quietly moved from your pocket to your landlords or your mortgage lenders over 20 years. And you didn't get a memo about it. Transportation costs have done the same thing. The average car payment in the US hit $740 a month in 2025. In 2010, it was $480. Insurance, fuel, and maintenance on top of that. Transportation now consumes roughly 16% of the average household budget. Add housing and transport alone, and you're already at 53 cents of every dollar gone before you've bought a single meal. Then layer on what happened to food costs. Global food prices are up over 30% since 2020. Energy bills in the UK doubled between 2021 and 2023. Healthcare costs in the US have risen faster than wages every single year for the past 2 decades. And wages? In real terms, adjusted for inflation, median wages in most developed countries are actually lower today than they were in 2019. People are working more hours for money that buys less. This is the invisible squeeze. Costs went up, wages stayed flat, and the gap where savings used to live quietly disappeared. It's not that people stopped trying to save. It's that the math stopped working for them. Now here's the part that doesn't get talked about enough, and this might be the most important section of this entire video. Living paycheck to paycheck doesn't just feel bad, it costs money. Real, measurable money that people who have savings never pay. Let me show you exactly what I mean. When you have no financial buffer and your car breaks down, you have two options: pay for it immediately, which you can't, or put it on a credit card. The average unexpected car repair costs around $1,200. On a credit card at 21% interest, if you're making minimum payments, that $1,200 repair costs you closer to $1,900 by the time it's paid off. You paid a $700 penalty for being poor. Not for being irresponsible, just for not having a buffer. Now multiply that across every unexpected expense in a year. Medical bills, a broken appliance, an emergency flight home, a month where three things go wrong. Research from the Urban Institute found that people living paycheck to paycheck pay what economists call a poverty premium. They consistently pay more for the same goods and services than people with financial cushions. They pay more for car insurance because they can't afford a higher deductible. They pay more for utilities because they can't pay bills early for discounts. They pay more for groceries because they can't buy in bulk. They pay more for credit because their score suffers from occasional late payments. They pay more for everything, and they earn less to begin with. The cruel irony of living on the edge is that it actively keeps you on the edge. Every financial setback costs more than it would if you had savings. Every cost is higher. Every option is worse. This is why people who are trying, genuinely, consistently trying, can still feel like they're going backwards. Because sometimes they are. The math is working against them at every turn. And here's the psychological dimension that makes it even worse. In 2013, Princeton researchers Sendil Mullainathan and Eldar Shafir published one of the most important studies in behavioral economics. They found that financial scarcity, the constant awareness that you don't have enough, consumes mental bandwidth the same way a demanding task does. When your brain is running constant background calculations about money, how much is in the account, what hits next, what happens if something breaks, it has less processing power available for everything else. The researchers measured the cognitive impact at roughly 13 IQ points. 13 points. Gone. Not because of intelligence, because of stress. To put that in perspective, that's more cognitive impairment than losing a full night of sleep, every single day. This means the person living paycheck to paycheck isn't just financially disadvantaged. They're making every decision, at work, at home, with their health, with their relationships, with measurably less cognitive capacity than someone who has a financial cushion. And here's the part that really gets me. The decisions that would fix the financial situation, negotiating a raise, spotting a better job, starting a side income, managing a budget, all require the cognitive capacity that financial stress is actively destroying. It's a trap that's designed to keep people in it. A 2022 global study tracking workers across 15 countries found that employees experiencing financial stress were 28% less productive at work, twice as likely to have poor health outcomes, 3 times as likely to have relationship difficulties, and significantly less likely to ask for a raise, even when they deserved one. The paycheck-to-paycheck trap isn't just a bank account problem, it's a whole life problem. And the exit requires understanding not just the financial mechanics, but Here's something important that most financial content completely misses. Not all paycheck-to-paycheck situations are the same, and the solution looks completely different depending on which type you're in. Type 1. The structurally trapped. This is someone whose genuine essential expenses, rent, food, transport, basic bills, consume essentially all of their income. No amount of budgeting or cutting subscriptions fixes this. The math doesn't work because the income is too low relative to the cost of living in their area. For this person, the only real levers are increasing income through a better job, a second income stream, or relocation, or dramatically reducing a major fixed cost like housing. Telling this person to cut their coffee is not financial advice, it's an insult. Type 2. The lifestyle inflated. This is someone whose income could support savings, but lifestyle expenses have expanded to fill every available dollar. New car, larger apartment than needed, regular dining out, subscriptions they've forgotten about, impulse purchases that feel small individually but add up to hundreds a month. This person has margin. They've just spent it before it became savings. For this person, a spending audit, a genuine line-by-line review of where every dollar goes, is usually eye-opening. And the fix is behavioral, not structural. Type 3, the high income trap. This is the one that surprises people most. Someone earning $120,000, $150,000, even $200,000 a year, and still living paycheck to paycheck. How? Because lifestyle inflation is ruthless and has no income ceiling. Bigger house, nicer car, private schools, business class flights, expensive hobbies, and underneath all of it, the same psychological reality: no buffer, no cushion, one bad month away from crisis. This person often has the most complicated relationship with their financial situation because they feel like they shouldn't have this problem, which makes it harder to address, honestly. Knowing which type you are matters enormously, because the solution for type 1 is completely different from type 2 or type 3, and most generic financial advice is written for type 2, while type 1 nods along feeling invisible, and type 3 scrolls past thinking it doesn't apply to them. Let me take a moment to zoom out. Because this is a global story and I want you to see the full picture. In the United Kingdom, the cost of living crisis that began in 2021 pushed millions of households into financial precarity that didn't exist before. The average UK household now spends approximately 40% of take-home pay on housing. In London, that number is closer to 55%. The Bank of England estimates that roughly 4 million UK households are in mortgage stress, spending more than 30% of income on mortgage payments alone. And with rents at record highs, renters aren't doing any better. In Australia, housing affordability has reached its worst point in recorded history. Sydney and Melbourne consistently rank among the least affordable cities in the world relative to local wages. Young Australians are saving for longer, buying later, and starting wealth building a full decade behind their parents' generation. In Canada, the story is nearly identical. Toronto and Vancouver have some of the highest price-to-income ratios for housing on the planet. An entire generation is either locked out of homeownership entirely or carrying mortgages so large that a single interest rate rise can push them into crisis. And globally, across every developed economy, the same pattern repeats. Costs of essential goods rise faster than wages. Housing becomes increasingly inaccessible, and the percentage of income available for savings quietly shrinks towards zero. This isn't a personal failure story. This is a structural economic story happening to hundreds of millions of people simultaneously. And understanding that matters because it changes how you approach the solution. Not with shame, not with blame, but with clear eyes and a specific plan. Okay, let's get specific. Because this video isn't about making you feel informed and hopeless. It's about giving you a real, actionable path out. Here's the exact sequence that works, regardless of which type of paycheck to paycheck you're in. Step 1, run the real numbers. Most people have a vague sense of their finances. They know roughly what comes in and roughly what goes out, but roughly is where the money disappears. Spend 1 hour, just one, going through the last 3 months of bank and credit card statements. Categorize every single transaction. Add up each category. I promise you will find at least one number that genuinely surprises you, usually several. You cannot fix what you cannot see clearly. This step is non-negotiable. Step 2, identify your type. Using what we covered earlier, are you structurally trapped, lifestyle inflated, or high-income trapped? Be brutally honest. This isn't a judgment, it's a diagnosis, and a wrong diagnosis leads to the wrong treatment. Step 3, attack your biggest fixed cost. Whether it's housing, transport, or debt repayment, your biggest fixed cost is where the real money is hiding. Reducing rent by $300 a month by getting a roommate, moving neighborhoods, or relocating is worth more than every small lifestyle cut combined. Eliminating a car payment by switching to a paid-off used vehicle frees up $700 a month immediately. Refinancing high-interest debt or consolidating credit cards can cut monthly obligations by hundreds. All stuff matters. The big stuff is where your financial life actually turns around. Step 4. Build the $1,000 wall first. Before you think about investing, before you think about retirement, before anything else, build a $1,000 emergency buffer. This single step removes the most common reason people stay paycheck to paycheck: the unexpected expense that wipes out any progress and sends them back to zero. $1,000 in a separate account that you do not touch except for genuine emergencies. This is your first line of defense, and once it's there, you will feel it immediately. Step 5, automate the gap. Whatever gap you found between income and expenses, even if it's $50, even if it's $200, automate it. Set up a transfer on payday to a savings account before your brain can spend it. The behavioral research is unambiguous on this. People who automate savings sustain them. People who manually transfer money every month stop doing it within 3 months. Make the decision once. Let the automation make it every month forever. Step 6. Grow the income. Seriously. This is the step most financial advice skips because it's harder to give generic advice about, but it's often the most important one, especially for type 1. One additional income stream, freelancing, an online skill, a weekend gig, a promoted position at work that adds even $400 a month changes the entire equation. $400 a month is $4,800 a year. That's your emergency fund in under a year. That's the beginning of actual wealth building. The internet has made it genuinely possible for almost anyone to develop and monetize a skill. That's not hype. That's the economic reality of 2026. The question is whether you use it. Let me tell you about James. James is 31. He lives in Manchester. He was making $32,000 a year, decent money, and somehow always running out before the month ended. He did the audit, found he was spending $340 a month on subscriptions and food delivery he barely noticed. Found his car payment was eating 22% of his take-home pay. He sold the car, bought a $4,000 used one with cash, got a bike for short trips. He canceled everything he didn't actively use weekly. He set up a $200 automatic transfer on payday to a separate savings account. 6 months later, he had $200 saved. First time in his adult life, he had a buffer. The car repair that happened in month 7, $800, didn't send him into crisis. He paid it. The savings account dipped, and then he rebuilt it. His brain got quieter. The 2 a.m. arithmetic slowed down. He asked for a raise at work 3 months after that. Got it. Because he'd been showing up differently. More focused, more confident, less desperate. Today, James has $8,000 saved. Not wealthy, not retired, but not one paycheck away from disaster either. That's what the exit looks like. Not dramatic, not overnight, just out. 78% of people are one paycheck away from disaster. That number exists not because most people are bad with money, but because the system has been slowly, quietly tightening around ordinary people for 2 decades, and nobody handed anyone a map out. You now have one. It starts with seeing your numbers clearly, knowing which type of paycheck to paycheck you're in, attacking the biggest costs, building the first $1,000 wall, and automating the gap before your brain spends it. None of these steps are complicated, but all of them require doing the thing instead of just knowing the thing. And that's the difference, always, between the people who end up with options and the people who end up without them. The exit is real. It just starts today. If this video helped you see your situation more clearly, drop a like. It takes 1 second and helps this reach people who genuinely need to see it. Subscribe if you haven't, because every week we cover exactly these kinds of decisions. The ones that look ordinary in the moment and look enormous 10 years later. Not financial advice, just the patterns that keep showing up. See you in the next one.